Hello, everyone, and welcome to India Foundation for the Arts organized Throwback Thursdays with IFA. This is our 11th showcase where the grants that we make across the country in the arts and culture is shared by our grantees with a larger audience. As some of you know, IFA has been supporting arts and culture projects for the past 25 years. Yes, this is our 25th year. And we have been not just making grants, but also enabling processes through which the work that our grantees do, the incredible work that our grantees do, can actually be shared with larger publics. So for that, we have an IFA archive where we put up the work. We have it put up on our website. But we would also organize public events where we would invite you to come and listen to presentations that our grantees make. Post the lockdown, we came online and we started Throwback Thursdays with IFA to showcase this work. Today we have a very special grant because this project happened right here in Bangalore. But before I request my colleague Monisha to tell you a little bit about the program under which the grant got support and what this grant is about, a couple of house rules for today's webinar. Most of you have been in enough and more webinars to know, but I shall repeat. You have a chat section where you can put your comments, suggestions, your appreciation for the project, recommendations that you might have for further work. But there is a separate box, which is the Q&A box, where you can put up your questions as our grantees present. And at the end of their presentation, those questions will be taken up for discussion. If you registered on Zoom, then you're here with us. But if you would at this point like to invite your friends or ask them to join us, we are live on our India Foundation Facebook page, and you can invite your friends to join us there. So with that, we will begin. And Monisha, do you want to share a little bit about the program and the project and who will be with us today sharing their work?
Thank you, Arundhati. Very delighted that today we are presenting a project supported under our Project 560 initiative. For those of you who may know, Project 560 is our Bangalore City initiative. And it's a project where we invite artists, researchers, scholars, organizations, and collectives to look at the city of Bangalore, explore the stories, the memories, and our imaginations for the city of Bangalore. And a very special component, we've been running actually this program since 2014, and a very special component in the last 2 years has been our neighborhood engagement, where we invite citizens, residents, and everyday folks to engage with their neighborhood through artistic explorations. And today we have a very special collective that came to us with a very exciting grant in 2019. This is the Richardstown Residents Association. They wanted to engage the children of their neighborhood through a wall art project. I don't want to say too much about the project because I'd love for the team to share that with you. And with that, I'd like to introduce the team. There's Anaheeta Pinto, Monisha Lobo, and Anna Alexander from the Richardstown Residents Association, or what we call RTRA. There's artist Aditya Fernandes, who engaged with the project and looked after the artistic exploration. And we also have Kudisia Fatima, a volunteer and a participant in the project. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Anaheeta.
Thank you, Monisha. And thank you to IFA for giving us this opportunity to speak today and to reflect upon our wonderful community affirming project that we did last year. Hello to all of you. I'm Anaheeta and I represent the Richardstown Association together with my colleagues who are also here. And we look forward to sharing this project with you. So as a voluntary organization, as a voluntary residents organization, the most important thing that we always have to grapple with and the challenges that we have is how do we bring community together? And one of the most important things I think that we need to do is to create platforms for community engagement. And what happens is, sorry, I can't see this. Have we started the screen presentation? Yeah. So one of the most important things that we do is to create platforms, like I said. So we have the In and Around newspaper. It is a quarterly newspaper. And this newspaper actually is a platform for all of us to get together and speak. And interestingly, the IFA grant came to us through a reader of In and Around. So one of the important things that we thought when we proposed to IFA is, how does community come together? And so we decided we were going to propose to them. Thank you, Babu. Right. So our proposal was to have a group of children from Richardstown paint a public wall with the impressions of their town. And why did that excite us? It was because it provided us an opportunity to bring the neighborhood together. And more importantly, I think, what it did was it gave us an opportunity to make the civic service providers feel included. You see, when you approach a BBMP or the railways to do anything, response is at best sluggish. So we felt that this would be an interesting way to actually make them feel like they have done something to contribute to community pride. And we were right, because what happened was, after we sort of approached them and said, look, this is the project, the children will be involved, they'll be doing some really lovely artwork. As the time came closer for this to happen, they all came forward, very proactively. And even today we find that the wall belongs to them, and suddenly Richardstown belongs to them. So that was a huge, valuable contribution that this project made. So really, like I said at the bottom of the slide, it was about transforming a wall of shame to a wall of fame. Can we move to the next slide? So how did we do this? Very broadly, we divided our project into two parts. One was we would take children on a walk around our iconic town, on a guided walk. And the second part was Aditya Fernandes, our design lead, he put together, depending on the scale of the wall, he put together their artwork, untampered, and we would draw the outline onto the wall and have the children paint it. So that was the broad plan for this project.
Yeah. So the visual you see now is the view as you climb up Moss Road Bridge, which is the very entrance of Richardstown. As you can see, it's a huge garbage dump. There were animal carcasses, beer bottles, plastics, sanitary ware, broken sanitary ware, furniture, unused furniture, the works. And they had the problem of flashers coming and hassling the school children. We can see Clarence School right in the background. Opposite, as the children leave from school, these flashers would come and hassle them. So it was a huge problem which Clarence was facing. So we decided to take up this spot, the broken down wall, approach the railways and get it rebuilt and clear it up. And this, after 4 months of relentless effort, the railways did build us a wall. But as you can see, there were a lot of girders there and loose hanging cables. So we sought the assistance of the BBMP stakeholders. They came forward and they cleared all the girders, they cut it, they compacted the pavement with fresh soil, removed all the loose cables, and they fixed a mesh above the wall so that to deter people from throwing garbage over the wall.
So for us, community was just not limited to the children who live in Richardstown. Inclusivity meant involving all our children who call Richardstown home. So it's kids from Clarence who spend close to 10 hours of their day over here. And of course, most importantly, the children and grandchildren of our PKs. Next slide, Babu.
Yeah, we had Indira Darshini, a local Darshini, help us with the food and the local home chefs who provided the lunch and snacks for us. We took care to provide them with buttermilk and lime juice and healthy snacks and a stuffed aloo parota, which was easy to eat while they were painting because their hands were full of paint and turpentine. So we had provided fresh snacks and healthy snacks for them, and not too much of sweets so that they don't go hyper.
Since the concerned stretch of the road is one of the busiest in Richardstown, we had to work very, very closely with our police to cordon off the area and to ensure smooth traffic flow on the day prior to the event and on the day of the event. And as with every service provider we worked with, the police completely exceeded our expectations. The amount of time and effort they invested. They also took time off from their hectic schedules to come and paint the wall with the children. And if you would look at the third picture and you see a policeman being felicitated over there, that is Inspector Ganesh Rao, who helped us hugely in this project. He has quite a fan following in the area, and he used this while he was standing over there. We saw a lot of people coming and felicitating him. It became a parallel event that he was running over there. Yeah, so that's a interesting visual there. Yeah, Babu, next slide.
So this is the paint. So what happened was we realized very quickly that we wouldn't have enough money to get the paint. So we said, all right, everybody's coming together, coming forward so willingly. Why don't we just write to Asian Paints and tell them about the project, and maybe they'll come forward too. And without hesitation, within 2 days, Asian Paints said, sure, all the paint is yours. And look at the serendipity of it all. The paint dealer that they told us to go and get the paint from was just 500 meters away from our wall. The volunteers. So we needed so many volunteers because you have 18 children and you've got to keep those parents away. You've got to take them across to the loo, which was in Clarence School across this busy road. You have to feed them, you have to clean up, you have to coordinate them. There were so many volunteers that we needed, and everyone came forward. We had to even have volunteers to address the passers-by because we were on a main road. People would stop and start pointing, and and the kids would get distracted, so we had to rush people off to say, okay, answer them. And it was a huge event. It was a celebration. It was great fun. Right, so this is part one of our work. I said we divided it into 2 parts. So part 1 was the introduction. It was also a guided tour of our town. You never see your own town for what it is. It's always a conduit when you're going somewhere, right? So this was the first time I think we all viewed our town and saw how beautiful it was. So the next slide, please. Right, so we met at our iconic park, Richards Park, where we paired the children together. So these children had never met each other before. Some of them didn't speak common languages. So we were a little afraid, will they get on? Will everything work? But we adults are too jaded. These kids just got on so beautifully. And they were so excited, and we made them play some getting to know each other games. Look at that little boy there. I've forgotten his name, Suresh. Yes. Kishore. He came in his Sunday best with tie and jacket, and it was so sweet. And they played around under the beautiful canopy of our rain trees. And then we walked in 2 by 2 all the way to Apology, where we met wonderful Aditya Fernandes, who's our design lead, who will take you through the rest of the presentation.
Hi, everyone. So it's a little confusing because I can't see anyone. I can only see the slideshow. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Aditya, and I'm an artist and a designer. And basically, I have quite a fond connection to Richardstown because my grandmom lived on Pottery Road, and I spent most of my childhood there. So when Anaheeta asked me to get involved with this, and she said I'd be working with kids to paint a wall, I just had to say yes. So yeah, we went to Apology, which is also the gallery of my uncle Paul Fernandes. This is Darshana from the IFA with Paul. So he showed us all of his work and fantastic watercolors and illustrations of retro Bangalore from the 60s and 70s. And it was a real treat for the kids. Just look at them, They've never seen anything like this. All these wild characters and, amazing caricatures of people in the city. And over here, we've got Paul talking a bit about his work. He spoke to us about what it means to draw architecture and your surroundings in Bangalore in particular. And he also spoke about, how do you observe the world around you? So listen in.
Is it bright or is it a cloudy morning? All that matters. Then if you want to draw it at night, everything changes. There's the moon to look at, and the moon shines on everything. So these are small things you must look at before you start drawing.
So yeah, this is just a short clip from within his workspace in his gallery. And so continuing on from that, I also devised this, this little like visual prompt to help the kids to, again, open their eyes and actually look out for things all around them. So I'll just read it out. We've got patterns. I asked them to spot patterns, colorful things, something old. The old things would probably be buildings from the area. And then anything that moves, like an animal or even humans or transport, nature and living things. So here's a video of me, again, just giving the kids a little exposure, like getting them to open up their minds.
My shirt has a pattern right now, these squares, Patterns are everywhere. So you have to look out for patterns all around you. And if you see something that you think is interesting, that you like a lot, you think is special, draw it down, okay?
So yeah, some of the kids were a little bit young for, to understand those kinds of things. But I think at the start of that clip, one of the girls was actually looking at her shirt, trying to see what patterns were on her own shirt. So next we went to our second stop after Apology. It was the Bangalore East Railway Station. And each kid was given a sketchbook and crayons and a board to put their material on. And here you can see Kishore again in his Sunday best. Our third stop was a very charming old bungalow owned by Mr. Shashidhar, who is actually listening in on this call. And the kids were just obsessed with all the details and the architecture, the monkey top roofs and the garden. It was just pretty unreal because you don't see houses like this in Bangalore anymore. And we went back to Richards Park so that they could explore, drawing nature, plants, leaves, flowers, things like that. Oh, keep an eye out for this bandstand, which is featured in this photo because it appears later throughout the presentation. This is quite iconic of Richards Park. And our final stop was Holy Ghost Church, where I spent many a Sunday growing up. And yeah, again, totally different kind of things to notice. The brick architecture, the stone architecture, and the stained glass windows. Again, things you don't really see unless you go to that kind of place. So at the end of it all, I had 20 sketchbooks from these kids full of such crazy drawings. At first I was a little worried, what kind of drawings are these kids going to give me? But you can see some of the drawings were, on the top right, you can see this girl had drawn a man running a catering stall in the train station. And just look at, he's standing on top of the table when there's like fruit juices next to him. Anyway, so some of the drawings ranged from sophisticated to pretty naive and whimsical. I think that thing on the right is supposed to be a tree, but yeah, just fantastic. Then this was Jayashri, who drew, again, the sites of Bangalore East Railway Station. In case you're wondering, that thing in the middle is a train with all the seating inside. And then look at this, Atul, who is 12 on the left, and Shirisha, who is 6 on the right. And they're both drawing the bandstand from that photo. And you can just see how, a 12-year-old tries to make it more detailed, and because they can observe more. But the 6-year-old manages to distill it, into its essence, which is just those 3 columns and the roof, and it's just so charming, So yeah, I got those 20 sketchbooks with drawings, and now was, how do you actually take all of those drawings and turn it into a design to put onto a 107-foot wall? It was that long. So I had scanned in all of the sketches from their books, and I had come up with this artwork, which is actually to scale. So the wall was It was about 8 feet tall and about 107 feet long. And yeah, this was how I did it. So it was on Illustrator on the computer. I'd just rearranged all of the drawings to make a long sort of panoramic view. And I also put in the words, the letters of Richardstown, just to tie it all together. So you can see all of the kids and what they drew. There's Shirisha's bandstand. So, you know, in her sketchbook, it was about 1 inch tall because she's a small girl working in a small book and stuff. And then I blew it up 8 feet onto this wall. And so that was, you know, that's part of the joy for me.
Did she even recognize that it was hers, Babu?
Of course, yeah, yeah. Too bad she was too short to paint the whole thing. And if you're, in case you're wondering how we got this massive drawing onto this very long wall, here's a little video to explain. So we had used a projector in the middle of the night. I mean, just after the sunset, actually. But we needed complete darkness to be able to do this. And here, as you can see on the left, there's me holding the laptop and the projector, and a few adults who could make it to help trace the artwork onto the wall. And you can also see how much space we needed, you know, to get the projection to the right size. So we had to occupy half of the road, and the police helped, you know, cordon off the whole space. It was just pretty unreal because there was all this traffic and noise, and we were just there drawing, and everyone was stopping to look. It was lots of fun. Here you can see us tracing outlines. And of course, the cops got involved. That Mr. Ganesh Rao himself. So it took us about 2 hours to get the drawing onto the wall, and then we had to, you know, actually add color to it the next day. That was the painting. So we came up with this color scheme. And the following morning, the painting began.
Babu, can I just tell a small story about this?
Of course, yeah.
So these paint buckets, these are not your Milky Mist 1 liter. They came all the way from Muscat, if you would believe it. So Monisha, who's here on the call, we called her about a week ago before the event, and we said we needed about 100 of these paint buckets to divide up the paint. And she was sitting
in Dubai. You forgot to mention that.
Okay, so she was sitting over there with at her sister-in-law's place and wondering how is she going to do it. So she goes across the local Dubai supermarket, and Monisha, where did you go? And she actually brought it as check-in luggage all the way from Dubai for us, because she arrived 1 day before the show. So this was the kind of interest and the kind of, you know, energy that this wall brought to our community.
No, I have to say these were recycled boxes. I did not buy this yogurt. It was, my sister-in-law contacted a restaurant, and then they got together 100 of these boxes, and I brought empty boxes back. So we recycled too, okay?
Well corrected.
So yeah, I'll just continue. So each kid was given a little printout of the section of the wall that they were going to be painting. So here we have Kudsia. And here you can see the scale of the wall versus the printout. And yeah, where that kid is standing painting, it's about 8 feet tall. So we had a lovely photographer from Bombay who's recently moved to Bangalore. He volunteered his services and he was documenting all of this for us. Here I was showing some of the kids how to achieve different brush strokes by tilting the brush and all of that kind of stuff. So again, I think on the right, you can see that's Shirisha, who painted who drew the bandstand. And obviously she couldn't reach the top of the wall. So we had some other kids to be helping. And of course, the adults couldn't resist but join in.
I know, me too. Huh? Like that.
Do some.
I'm an artist. I like the way she said that. She's such a character. Hey, Ashwan, Ron!
So yeah, it was loads of fun. These are some of the PK kids, the Pora Karmikas, who are the municipal sweepers, some of their kids volunteering on the left. And Mr. Ashwath.
No, Babu, a special mention for this guy who you see on the right. He's a BBMP solid waste management worker. He's been the guy who actually helped us clear up that entire debris that you saw in the initial slide. So yeah, a special shout out for him.
And he's a painter as well, right?
Yeah, he's a painter as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually drew that urn which he's painting with a plant inside. And we even got volunteers and people who came from journalists who came to cover it, and they also got involved with the painting. So I think we don't have too many pictures, but just behind these two girls, there's a little setup where all our paint was, and also the food that was generously prepared and brought to feed these kids.
Even neighbors came in with pudina sandwiches and provided sandwiches for all the children and passers-by. There was so much of buzz and excitement, and everybody wanted to participate.
Speaking of passers-by, look at them. Every single one of them stopped and held up traffic and took photos and asked what was going on. And of course, look at these happy guys. Trying not to get paint on their white uniforms. And yeah, 6 hours later, the wall was complete. I actually anticipated it may take 2 days, and I was quite surprised because we had so many people going at it at the same time. And here is a close-up. 107 feet. So you have the railway tracks, a traveler, the train with the seats, Mr. Shashi's house, and interspersed with some nice flowers and plants that the children picked up on, these details. There's
that urn. That's our urn. It's all over our park.
Yeah, so I also really enjoyed playing with scale. As you can see, some things are massive, some things are small. And again, it really excited the kids to see this happen because it's not realistic in that sense. That's the whole wall together. Can everyone see this okay?
Yeah, yes.
And yeah, all of the artists. From Richardstown, kids who lived in Richardstown, kids who studied at Clarence High School, and kids from the Pura Karmika community. And this is us, I think, finishing the wall and just doing one photo op before everyone ran all over the place and said bye. Okay, brushes up. We all had our brushes up and over to you, Anaheeta.
So yes, this is important. Like I said in the beginning, the idea was to create a platform for community to come together and for everybody to feel like this is their community. And we're very delighted to say that we managed that. The Southern Railways, they were so good. They did everything possible to make that wall happen and to do what it takes to clear the area because there were glass pieces at the bottom. So BBMP, in fact, Ashwath, who we talked about earlier, the day before the children came, he was there by 5:36 in the morning because people constantly throw things. You clean, they throw, so there were bottles even on the last day. And he came and he cleared up. And, so BBMP was completely invested. The police were amazing. They got so involved. You saw they made it their, they made a makeshift office for themselves there. The PKs were absolutely delighted, and you'll see the outcome of that. Asian Paints, of course, top notch because, they sponsored our paint and all they wanted was a mention. India Foundation and for the Arts, thank you so much. Clarence School was wonderful, besides providing their children and their grounds, to even take the children to the toilet and keeping the shamiana, etc. at night. That, it was, they were super. Residents of Richardstown, amazing, came forward to encourage us, to make things for us. So that was wonderful. We even had Aniv Rao, a local photographer who you never knew existed, to just volunteered his people to come and photograph the event. Then, of course, we have our most wonderful Paul Fernandes, who was our inspiration right through. Mr. Shashidar's house and Mr. Shashidar himself, who was a very active member of the RTRA. And the RTRA once again managed to create this platform. And to this day, we really are very proud of this wall, which actually lies at the entrance. You know, it's a one-way. As you come down Mosque Road flyover, you have to take a left or a right. And if you take a left, it's right there on your left for everybody to see and celebrate with us. So here are some of the reactions. I'll read them out to you. If we could replicate an RTRA in other words, what a transformation we could do for the city, said one of the residents after this whole thing was done. Another one said, our wall represents not just what's possible in Richardstown if we come together, but also what's possible across this country and its many beleaguered neighborhoods. To me, it represents inclusivity, collaboration, and joy. This is another resident, Samar Harlankar, who is a very celebrated journalist. Another, Ganesh Rao, the man who was around all the time, he said in his very typical way, it is not Richardstown Residents Association, but Richardstown Residents Association, because during the wall painting, they included us all. So beautification was everybody's successful show, he said. And then we had Ashwath, we're a big fan of. He heads our PK team. And he said, hopefully people will now think twice before littering, urinating, and sticking posters on the newly painted walls. I was a painter before I joined BBMP, and this wall brought out my artistic side. So it was quite lovely. Babu? And Monisha, will you take them through this surprise, please?
Yeah, this is the part that I love best. So the idea for the PK wall grew out of the concept we came up with for the children's wall. Around 300 meters away from the children's wall, there was another black spot that we had been dealing with for years. It's ghastly, it's absolutely horrible. And for a while, the RWA had been experimenting with having our PKs decorate the pavement in front of the wall with rangoli. And we noticed that the garbage decreased exponentially when they did the rangoli art on the ground. But rangoli on the pavement is not sustainable. And we wondered if we could get them to use the wall as their canvas and get rangoli done on the wall. Our PKs were so fired up with the concept of their children painting the wall that they just immediately agreed. And when we asked them what kind of support that they wanted, whether they needed any help, and Aditya was very happy to help them out, they just said, no, we just want paint and we want some paint brushes. And in 4 hours, the transformation was incredible. This happened the day after the children painted the wall. Babu, should go to the next pictures, please. Yeah, this is a picture of our PKs painting a wall that is actually nightmarish for them. This is one of the worst affected spots in Richardstown. Please, yeah. This is a really lovely visual. So the PKs came with their children, their grandchildren, and since it is a main road, we could not allow the children to be standing around. So they came in an auto rickshaw and they used the auto rickshaw as their playpen. So if you can see, all of them are sitting in that little auto rickshaw. We had provided them with some cake, biscuits. Ganesh Rao, our inspector, of course, happy to pose over there. And the children came, they painted the wall for a little bit, and they would go and sit in the auto rickshaw. They would eat a little bit. Some of them went to sleep in the auto. It was just unimaginable that day. Yeah, just get on to the next slide. This is the final outcome of the wall. It's rangoli, it's the art that they know best. And I think it's quite incredible to us what they created in 4 hours. Now, people ask me very often, will this deter passers-by from throwing garbage there? I don't know. I have handled solid waste management in Richardstown for 10 years. And I deal with the PKs almost on a daily basis. And I seldom see them smile. The nature of their job does not warrant much happiness. But if you saw them on that day and the big smiles, Babu, can you just go back to the slide with Saraswati and the baby, the previous slide, please? Yeah, if you can see the lady carrying the baby, her name is Saraswati. She's the PK who cleans that stretch. She has the unenviable job of cleaning that terrible stretch every single day. And I think her joy and what you see on her face is someone doing something she really loves. And you know what she told me that day? She said, to me, to most people, I'm just a garbage collector. But for the first time today, someone has understood that I love color and I love art. I love Rangoli. And I have been treated as an individual. And I think her smile says it all. She did not stop painting till every inch of that wall was covered. To me, I think that is how art is transformative, how it can transform a life. Yes.
So this is our final slide, but this is not the final thing. We have with us lovely Kutsia, who was part of the wall painting process. She came on the walk, she helped us paint. And then when it was all done, she sent me a poem about her experience. And so we asked Kutsia if she would come and read the poem to close this presentation. And lovely Kutsia is here with us. And we'd love to hear you, Kutsia. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Kutsia and I've written this poem covering our experience on painting the wall. So here it is. As the birds chirped up in the tree and the sun shone down upon us, we all gathered in a certain park as old and young jogged past us. A group of 20 and a handful of others, all in a circle, introduced themselves and started off with painting the wall that lined the park and everywhere else. Being paired with a partner, we started off. First stop, the East Railway Station. This was the place that held the wall around which revolved our entire mission. Sketching everything that caught our eye, from the colors and patterns to the antiques, covering everything that moves or flies, our pages were filled with what our town bespeaks. 5 different stops at all the main places. First, from the oldest house in town to the Holy Ghost Church and the school. And yes, the park that bears our green and brown. With the whole town lending a hand, soon enough the outlines were done. And everyone gathered in front of the wall. The main project had begun, and so had the fun. A few strokes here and a couple more there, blue for the church and green for the trees. 12 letters spelling out Richardstown. Oh, and don't forget the B. Hats off to the adults who kept on encouraging with smiles and words of praise. They were on their toes the entire time, catering to our needs in all possible ways. By the evening of that very day, our time and effort was worth it all, as the uniqueness of our town was all up there on the wall. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Kutsia, and thank you all for listening in.
Thank you, Kutsia. Thank you, Richardstown team. That was a lovely presentation. You've received a lot of appreciation in the chat box, and we have a couple of questions. But before we open up the questions to audiences, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Firstly, I know, there are a lot of people who are, asking how could we, extend this project to their neighborhoods, and, how, they'd love to work on similar projects. And how long did this whole process take? Because you worked with the Southern Railways, there was the whole neighborhood that you had to galvanize together, and BBMP. So how long did that process of engagement take? Anaheeta or Monisha?
So we started, I think we approached you sometime in March last year. And after we got the grant, it was a race to the finishing line. We had to postpone, if you remember, we had to postpone the date of the grant because that wall wasn't getting built. So we were talking about a building, or, painting a wall, and there was no wall. So it took us a good 5 months, I think, to get a wall. And then literally within the last week and a half, things galvanized, and people started, the agencies came forward, because we need, as Indians, we never do anything ahead of time. It has to be last minute, and then everybody is scrambling, and that's the only way things get done.
Yeah, and the other question I ask, and we get often, we get asked these questions because you support public art projects, you support projects like the wall, which you're talking about, beautifying, and then, there are black spots that return, or there are, or it may be, people come and throw things there. So what do you see the value in, like, doing something that creates a buzz? The initial 2-3 months, there's a lot of buzz around the project, but then, soon people start to perhaps ignore it. So I was just curious how the team felt about this engagement with the wall.
Monisha?
Yeah, so Menika, what we definitely noticed was a huge reduction, about 80% of the garbage reduced in that spot. All right. And this is something that the PKs tell me themselves. Okay, they have seen a reduction in the garbage. Now we unfortunately during this entire lockdown period, and then when the lockdown has opened up, there's not that much of activity. So once again we noticed some amount of garbage, but has been dumped over there, but it's nowhere near the earlier levels. And like I said, I think what has happened is, as a community, people have felt so good about the project that the PKs themselves feel so good about everything that they are doing a far greater job of cleaning up the space now. They don't feel so resentful about it. They feel happy about not happy, I don't think happy is the right word, but they definitely feel more motivated about what's happening over there. They keep the spot really very clean. It is inevitable that garbage will be thrown unless we change our mindsets. That's going to happen. And but definitely there has been a reduction. We'll need to refresh. We'll have to keep maybe doing a few more projects to keep a community involved, and that is important. But I think it's really paid off hugely. Thank you, IFA, for that. Yeah, you set us on the path.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. I mean, I know there are a lot of questions coming in, but are there going to be future projects? So let's hope we see something that comes out of that. Arundhati, if you'd like to lead in with some of the questions that are coming in from the Q&A.
Yeah, quite a few actually, Menika, thanks. And, I'll begin with the question you said. There is a lot of excitement. I think these are people from the neighborhood. Are there similar projects planned? How can I get involved? Is there a phone number? Is there an email? So if any of you would like to respond to that. Maybe Anaheeta, yeah.
So RTRA is 6 people who've been 6 people for the last 6 years. You see, people want to get involved and they'd like to say they want to get involved, but nobody joins RTRA. We end up being the same old people going gray and frustrated and just trying our best. But so the main thing you can do is join the committee. It's such a tireless, thankless, but sometimes rewarding when we do things like this job. So the first thing you do before you think of a project is to join our committee and try and, and you see the challenges of creating community feeling and pride. It's very difficult. And so if you join, then we can think of ideas. What do you say, Anu?
Definitely. And when this wall was being built, we saw a lot of people coming forward to participate. They wanted to be part of it, either in painting or in helping out in any way. And there's a lot of pride. Well, now we do see a few passers-by peeing on the wall, which is very disgusting. But for us in Richardstown, the wall represents a lot of community pride. And we worked very hard towards it, and we are very proud of it. And we hope to create much more of these such arts on more walls around our town.
So you can write to committee@rtra@gmail.com. You can go to our Facebook page. You can contact us through Instagram. We're there everywhere. Please come forward and join us.
Thanks, Anaheeta and Anna. I actually want to take this opportunity on behalf of IFA because of our Project 560 to thank all the resident associations and members, people who, like you said, Anaheeta, it's such a thankless job. There are tons of complaints, and I see that in the neighborhood. I live in the building, I live and elsewhere, tons of complaints, but very few thanks that go out to the work that members put in. This is totally voluntary. This is totally thankless. And it's just a sense of commitment to your community, to your neighborhood that makes some of the amazing people continue to do it. So on behalf of IFA, I would like to thank all such members across the city who put in extra time, effort, other than all the other roles that they manage as members of family, workplace, elsewhere. This job is such an important part of being a citizen. So thank you to all 6 of you, as well as to all such people in other communities and neighborhoods. I'll come to the second question. It's more about your, a couple of questions about the project itself. So how did you go about selecting the children is one question. And the other one about the project directly is, so how did you go about getting the sponsorship for Asian Paints? And I think this is to say, what was the process involved in, what did you do to get Asian Paints to agree?
You do the children, I'll do the paint.
Yeah. So for the children, like I said, since we wanted inclusivity, we sent out messages on all the Richardstown WhatsApp groups, on the Facebook page, and we asked parents if their children would be willing to volunteer. What we did define was the age group of the children, because we didn't want children who were too small. It would become a problem. And within 6 hours of posting our initial message, we had about 15 children who had already volunteered. So yes, so we went on a first come first serve basis, and we chose the first 6 from Richardstown. Clarence School, we left it to their principal and their vice principal to decide whom they wanted to choose. They chose, once again, the only thing that we had defined was age, because we did not really want to deal with children who were too small. They chose children who were very good at art in the school, and that's how Clarence School gave us the 6 children that they did. And in terms of the PK children, Ashwath, our star BBMP worker, we coordinated with him to speak to the various Paurakarmikas. Some of the children that you see from the Paurakarmika community are grandchildren, because a lot of the PKs in our ward are quite old, and it's their grandchildren actually who came forward and did that. So yeah, that's how the PK children were selected.
And to Monisha's point, when IFA actually approached us, one of the words that stood out for us for this grant was inclusivity. They said, your project has to be inclusive. So we really did some soul searching. We said, what does it mean to be inclusive? And then we started thinking, does Richardstown only belong to the Tony apartments that live, or people who live in those Tony apartments? What about the PKs who are so anonymous? They come early morning before you wake up, they're gone. Does it not belong to them? They spend most of their day. What about the children who go to Clarence School? So that's why we decided that we needed to, if this was to be truly and authentically inclusive, that we must recognize the contributors and the people who not even contribute, because really the town belongs to so many others apart from those of us who stay in the apartments. So that's to Monisha's point. And as far as Asian Paints was concerned, actually, I was quite lucky. I was working on a project. I'm a brand communication strategist, besides being a proud member of Richardstown Residents Association. And so while we were doing this project and we realized we didn't have enough money, I was working with another agency, and I asked, do you know anybody in Asian Paints? And Asian Paints was their client. So yes, there was a little influence used, and I asked for the key guy who I needed to write to. But I didn't have to do any selling, and I swear I didn't use any names. It was this project. It was, we gave them our proposal exactly like we gave IFA our proposal. And I got a call 3 days later, and they asked us a couple of questions, and it was ready. We just went and picked up our paints. So they were really wonderful. And all they asked was if in press releases, we give their logo or mention their name, which we did.
Arundhati, before your next question, I just wanted to add that, it's so important to have other supporters come forward, like Asian Paints. And at IFA, we are very grateful that Project 5 City, which is our city-based initiative, has been supported for 3 editions by Citi India. And they underwrote some of this this project as well, and your grant to Richardstown as well. Thank you. So thank you, Citi India.
And that the beauty of projects like this is also the multiple stakeholdership that comes because you ask. And this is something we constantly have to do at IFA as well, because we have to raise money, we have to raise resources. The idea of just asking, and Anaheeta, you so beautifully said, you just ask, does anybody know? Sometimes, does anybody know Asian Paints? Sometimes it's just that one question, and you don't know where that question will lead to. So thank you for sharing that it's sometimes a very simple ask. You ask around for help, and help often happens. Two more questions that are there. One is about the flashers. Any impact on the flashers? And this is actually coming from another of our grantees for a Malleshwaram project that we had supported, a similar neighborhood project.
So, Arundhati, yes, there has been a reduction, first of all, because the wall is now completely built, okay, and even on the side, the part that you cannot see, the railways have raised the height of that, of the meshing that they have put over there, okay? Yeah. So, I think just by tidying up the place a little bit, and, you know, it shows care, it shows concern, and people are a little scared to come and then do whatever they were doing earlier. So the school tells me that there has been a definite improvement, and there are definitely there's less of that kind of stuff that's happening over there now. Yeah.
In fact, the school's gate was on the other side. And now they've, of course, for other reasons as well, traffic rerouting, but they have changed the position of their gate. They've spent a whole bunch of money changing the gate so that it's right in front of the wall.
Okay, yeah. This is on that main road. So it's come onto the main road now.
Yes,
yeah. On this side.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one more question, and this I don't know who mentioned it. Menaka, did you mention it? The question is, you mentioned that there are 9 heritage neighborhoods. There are 10 neighborhoods. Which are the other 9 neighborhoods? Did you mention anything about how many heritage neighborhoods, or did you mention how many neighborhood grants we've made? Did you mention that?
You had written it in the presentation.
Yes, it's in the presentation that it's part of the, what is it called? RMP 2031.
It's the master plan.
Master plan
2031.
I'm afraid I don't know who the other neighborhoods are. I'm just proud that ours is one of them.
So we can find it on the BBMP website probably.
Yeah,
yes.
Master plan there, right? What's the full thing called? RMP.
Shashidhar, if Shashidhar is here, he knows everything. Just put it on the chat.
Maybe revitalization or something, but we can check it up on the BBMP website probably, and we'll find something.
Yes.
Yeah. So revised master plan. Yeah. Revised master plan 2031. There's one more question actually that's come up. When people stop dumping garbage near the wall, was it properly processed, or is there a chance they might have found some other public place to throw it at? I mean, was it just...
They find plenty of other public spaces. I'm right down the wall, further down there's...
I don't know, Monisha.
They dumped behind the wall. You should see behind the wall. You see, the wall is just is a wonderful facade.
No, but the height has been increased, so I don't think it's really. They will find newer places because it's easier to just find another place than monitor what you're doing. And but like I said, it's definitely reduced the garbage on that stretch for sure.
We don't have any more questions from our attendees and participants today, but I had one question, if I may ask you. This is about what has been the impact on the children, and for the school children, for the resident kids and the kids of the Parakarmikas, because a part of our Project 560, the initiative, is also to hope that young people will feel differently about their neighborhood. There'll be an investment, there'll be a connection, which will ultimately make them both responsible and demanding citizens, So, of course, it's a tall ask, and this is just one little, wonderful initiative. But if you know of any little anecdote or something that happened.
If Kutsia is still here, maybe we can ask Kutsia, what does she feel?
Yeah, that will be wonderful. Yeah. How has what has she felt? Is she there? Kutsia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. This experience was something new to me, and I've never experienced something like this before. So it was like something really different, and it gave me new experiences, and I could relate more to what the world has for art and painting. And I'm a passionate painter, so it was a really wonderful opportunity for me to increase my whatever different things are there in art and what I can go to and get done later. So it was a really nice opportunity overall, and I thank RTRA for including me in this.
And
Thank
also the wonderful thing, more than just, now when we see our PKs, we recognize their children. And now, see, that's the whole feeling of community, right? Earlier, they were just these anonymous people. Today, we not only know them, we know which child belongs to which. And I remember, Monisha, when was that? About like a month after that, we were somewhere, we were doing something, and suddenly this child comes and hugs you, right? Grabs your feet. And we go, that's that one, Shirisha or whatever. And, this sort of love and affection for people, just one wall and literally like a walk and a whole day session. And we are all best friends and family. Who can say that about their neighborhood? And from not only from us to perhaps Clarence School, but from us to the Parvat Karmikas. Everyone's included.
And I think what happened was the PKs felt, they didn't feel like their children were isolated and they were standing out. They were, it was amazing to see the children from Richardstown, our children, they don't really have access. I mean, they don't really mingle with this, with children like this, But on that day, we realized that children are just children, And if you take away stereotyping and how they are brought up, they just play with each other as children. And that's something that the PKs noticed, and they mentioned that that each of their children, they was a little smaller. The PK, since they are grandchildren, they were a little smaller, but every single child in Richardstown adopted one of the PK children to mentor. So the PK children were not left to on their own. If they had a language problem, there was somebody from the Richardstown kids were helping them to translate. I thought it was wonderful for our children also to be exposed to that. It's the great leveler. They realize that there are children who come, who might not have everything that they have, but they still did such a brilliant job, and they had a lovely time together.
And they would hold on to the mentors and call them Akka, remember?
Yeah.
Very became sweet. Such good friends. It was really sweet. Very, very sweet it was.
Yeah.
Thanks, Monisha, for sharing that, because that's often another worry. And Menaka, when we as staff members look at proposals which do suggest inclusivity, some of our worries are about the nitty-gritties of inclusivity.
Yeah, exactly.
That in our quest to be egalitarian, in our quest to bring in equality, are we making people feel uncomfortable? Yeah. Are we pushing our agenda onto other people and not really taking care to see that enough nuanced way of doing this is put in place? So thanks for sharing that, because that makes a huge difference. You can say you're inclusive just by adding 10 more names to something. But actually how it happens is something you often don't know. It's a risk, you have to be sensitive in the process as you go along. So thanks for sharing that.
But I have to also say that because we were so sensitive to the inclusivity part, during the tour, we made sure that Shashidhar was with us, who translated everything that Aditya and Paul said, and indeed what we said in Kannada. And we had our ex-president, Vincent Sundar, who also spoke in Tamil. So we made sure everything we said was translated into Kannada and into Tamil.
Thanks, Anaheeta, for that. Because language, again, becomes such a privilege, right? I mean, and we don't often realize the privileges we carry just because our ability to speak in a certain way, in a certain language. Thank you for that. I don't think there are any more questions. So, yeah. Menaka, do you have anything else to ask?
No, I think yeah. I was just curious. I mean, have you all thought about future projects that you may want to engage the community with? I know it's the pandemic and we are all kind of social distancing and locked in our own spaces. But has the team thought about anything, or it'll just unfold as it comes along?
I think it will unfold, and the lockdown has been quite isolating.
Yes.
And debilitating also. Yeah. We haven't been able to achieve much. We are not able to coordinate. It's a whole different space, when you're not there on the spot, there's so much follow-up, there's so much, going to the BBMP office, sitting there for hours, waiting for that man to let you in. None of that can be achieved. And you see that the other thing is there are no young volunteers. Not to say I'm too old, but, our president is a good 70 years old. I mean, you cannot have him sitting, and he's got, he's built these relationships. Mr. Shashidhar has been there for 100 years, literally. He's not that old, Shashi, sorry. But the point is, these are the people who have the contacts and the influence, and they can't get out. So we are very handicapped. This is a new way to, I know we'll have to develop a new way to move forward. At the moment, we are quite handicapped.
I think that's really true. I mean, when it's especially with community-led projects, I mean, across all projects that are running, how do you engage with people? How do you connect, and how do you make things happen in this space? I mean, that's one of the challenges.
So one thing that we did during lockdown, which I think is really interesting, is it's once again community that got together. We had a set of volunteers who came together to do a tree count in Richardstown. We have some beautiful, amazing trees in Richardstown. This is not really linked to your project in any way, but just talking about community and what we are doing in Richardstown. Yeah, we're kind of getting a complete survey done of all our trees that are infected, trees that are likely to fall down. So we start proactively planting new trees before that happens. And this again was done by volunteers who came forward from the community. So it is very enriching when you see people wanting to come forward to do something like that. And we did it during lockdown. So we did it individually, and it's something that we're still working on. But again, it's something the community is doing in Richardstown.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Monisha. And I would like to, on behalf of IFA, thank all of you for sharing these stories with us today. And I mean, it would have been, yes, a very different thing to actually have this done at a place where audiences could come, and maybe some more of the children could have joined us, and their parents could have joined us. But nevertheless, I mean, if this is how we're going to do it, we've tried our best. So thank you so much for sharing these stories with us. And thank you to the audience, all of you on Facebook and on Zoom who have been watching us. And do sign up on our Facebook, like our Facebook page, so you will get updates, because we'll keep doing this, sharing the projects that IFA supports in the future as well. So keep in touch with us on Insta, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Minika, I haven't forgotten any, right?
All good.
All of them. Yeah. And thanks again to this wonderful team, and may there be many, many more projects in your neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, IFA.
Thank you, everybody.
IFA.
Bye.
Thanks. We enjoyed it. We loved it. Thank you, I think. Yeah.